What would you say if I told you every religion is quietly solving the same human problems? This is Finding Enlightenment with Jay, and as you may have guessed, I'm Jay. Even though this video talks about religion, no specific religions are named in the making of this video. So you'll need to use the knowledge of your religion to see if any of this fits in the present or its history. Today we're peeling back the sacred curtain to explore 6 unspoken truths that most religions typically agree on but rarely say out loud. We'll look at how religions universally answer needs like belonging, meaning, comfort in the face of death, why rituals bind communities, and how ministries and institutions shape belief. Stay with me. By the end, you'll see religion less as a set of completing claims and more as a human technology for coping and cohesion. Religions around the world present a dazzling variety of doctrines, rituals, and sacred narratives. At first glance, the differences seem irreconcilable. Look closer, however, and a quieter pattern emerges. Beneath doctrinal disputes and cultural particularities, most traditions converge on a set of pragmatic responses to human needs. This video argues that religions function as an adaptive human technologies for meaning, cohesion, and coping. It traces 6 interlocking truths that most faiths typically accept but rarely say out loud. Each truth explains how religious forms address psychological vulnerabilities, social organization, moral coordination, and the management of transcendent experience. Acknowledging these pragmatic foundations does not reduce the genuine spiritual power that religions hold for adherents. Instead, it clarifies why religious systems are so resilient and why their leaders are so reluctant to make these pragmatic commitments explicit. At the root of every religious system lies an anthropology. Religions presuppose that human beings share certain needs and vulnerabilities. Across cultures, people seek belonging, a sense of meaning, and comfort in the face of mortality. These needs are not optional extras. They shape how communities are formed, narratives are told, and how authorities are exercised. Belonging is a primary human drive. Religious communities provide durable social networks that answer loneliness and create mutual obligations. Meaning is another universal demand. Myths and doctrines supply narratives that place individual lives into larger cosmic plots. Finally, the reality of death presses every tradition to offer consolation. Rituals, eschatologists, and doctrines about the afterlife are practical responses to the existential anxiety that mortality produces. Common vulnerabilities such as fear, doubt, and the longing for justice further explain why religions converge on similar themes. Fear motivates protective rights. Doubt produces doctrines that emphasize faith and trust. Longing for justice fuels teachings about moral recompense. Because these psychological realities are shared, doctrines across traditions adapt in parallel ways to meet them. The practical implication is that many theological differences are surface variations on deeper shared functions. Rituals are often described in sacred terms, but their social functions are equally important. Rituals create identity by marking who belongs and who does not. They bind individuals into networks of mutual obligation and make abstract commitments through concrete embodied practice. Rituals also function as behavioral training. Repetition shapes habit. When communities repeatedly practice generosity, fasting, confession, or communal prayer, those practices become moral disposition. Rituals thus operate as a form of moral education that is more effective than abstract instruction alone. Boundary maintenance is another central role of ritual. By distinguishing insiders from outsiders, rituals preserve social order and cultural continuity. These boundaries can be protective and stabilizing. They also create the conditions under which trust and cooperation flourish. In short, rituals are social technologies that produce cohesion, transmit values, and regulate behavior. Religions often prefer paradox, metaphor, and myth to literal exposition. This preference is not accidental. Sacred ministry performs several crucial functions that literal clarity cannot. First, the limits of language make metaphor necessary. Ultimate questions about meaning and being resist simple propositions. Framing sacred truth as paradox or symbols acknowledges the inadequacy of ordinary language and invites contemplative engagement rather than mere intellectual assent. Second, tolerance for ambiguity protects institutions. When doctrines are flexible enough to accommodate multiple interpretations, religious communities can survive intellectual challenges and cultural change. Ambiguity allows traditions to reinterpret teachings in new contexts without collapsing under scrutiny. Third, ministry preserves authority. Clergy, teachers, and ritual specialists derive part of their legitimacy from being guardians of the ineffable. If every sacred claim was reduced to a transparent, testable proposition, the special role of religious intermediaries would be diminished. Ministry, therefore, sustains the social structure that maintains religious life. Religious moral instincts rest on core instincts that are widely shared. Compassion, reciprocity, and a sense of fairness appears across traditions. These instincts form a moral bedrock upon which more specific rules are built. At the same time, many prohibitions and prescriptions are historically contingent. Dietary laws, dress codes, and ritual taboos often respond to ecological, economic, and political circumstances. What appears as timeless moral law frequently has pragmatic origins. Recognizing this contingency does not make moral teachings irrelevant. It highlights how doctrines balance individual needs with group survival. Religious ethics also involve trade-offs. Communities must weigh competing goods such as individual freedom and social cohesion, mercy and justice, or purity and hospitality. Doctrines evolve to manage these trade-offs in ways that sustain the group. The negotiable character of many rules explain why reform and reinterpretation are perennial features of religious life. Religious traditions seriously take the reality of transcendent experiences. Visions, feelings of awe, mystical union, and altered states of consciousness are not peripheral phenomena. They are central sources of religious conviction and authority. Subjective validation plays a powerful role. When individuals report visions or profound experiences, those experiences often carry more weight for them than abstract arguments. Shared experiences become canonical through a social amplification. When a community collectively recognizes and retells accounts of the transcendent, those narratives become part of the tradition's memory and identity. Institutions respond to those experiences by cultivating them and regulating them. Practices such as meditation, prayer, fasting, pilgrimage, and sacramental rites are designed to produce altered states. At the same time, institutions develop norms and authorities to interpret and authenticate such experiences. This dual process of cultivation and regulation ensures that transcendent experiences reinforce rather than destabilize communal life. Religious institutions are not neutral conveyors of truth. Like any durable organization, they evolve mechanisms to ensure their survival. Self-preservation shapes doctrine, ritual, and governance. Selective disclosure is one such mechanism. Inconvenient truths are downplayed, reinterpreted, or framed in ways that minimize disruption. Doctrinal emphasis shift over time to highlight elements that strengthen cohesion and authority. Syncretism and reform are adaptive strategies. When survival requires change, traditions borrow, reinterpret, and incorporate elements from other systems. Hierarchy and bureaucracy also serve institutional ends. Clerical structures, canonical law, and educational systems create continuity across generations. These structures can protect communities from fragmentation, but they also create incentives to preserve power and privilege. Understanding institutional self-interest explains why religious change is often slow, and why leaders resist admitting pragmatic motives that might undermine perceived sanctity. Across diverse traditions, religion functions as a human technology for meaning, cohesion, and coping. The 6 truths outlined here show how doctrines, rituals, ethics, and institutions converge to address human needs. Religions provide belonging, shape moral habits, manage uncertainty through ministry, validate transcendent experience, and organize social life in ways that enhance group survival. Why are these pragmatic truths really spoken aloud? Admitting them would risk eroding the felt sacredness that sustains commitment. Sacredness depends on a sense of transcendence and authority that is weakened when religious claims are framed purely as social or psychological adaptations. Leaders therefore emphasize metaphysical truth and spiritual depth while leading pragmatic functions implicit. Recognizing the unspoken synthesis does not require cynicism. It offers a clear appreciation of religion's power and persistence. When we see religion as a response to human vulnerability and a source of genuine spiritual insight, we can engage with traditions more honestly. Such engagement opens possibilities for reform that preserves what is life-giving, while addressing abuses and outdated practices. In the end, the quiet consensus among religion about human needs is not a secret to be exposed for the sake of exposure. It is a resource for building communities that are both humane and spiritually alive. So there you have it, 6 quiet truths that run through all the world's religions. If you learned something about your religion, send this video to someone that follows your religion. If your religion doesn't do one of these 6 things, tell me about your religion in the comments. I would love to hear it. If you want more deep dives, like this video and subscribe so you don't miss future uploads. Namaste, and let's keep finding enlightenment together.